during last year won Tearlament's mirror matchups against Jesse Cotton, something that not many duelists have been able to do.
That's a feat in its own right. I'm just wondering, now that you're face-to-face and we're about to start, are we going to see the dancing that we saw yesterday from Heroes Future? They were having a good time.
Indeed they were. I think that was Muguro that was really happy with
he was enjoying his
how
W's.
things were playing out. Actually, we'll see Josh now open up with the Fire King Island. It's a good start for the Snake Eye Fire King deck.
Yeah, Fire King Island, not bad. I didn't actually quite see what he was catching. I do see in Duel B there over there, Dimension Shifter being activated, which is pretty interesting as well. We also see Tearlaments kind of popping off with the Rhino Heart and Cashier Fenrir opening. Let's see what Josh is going to go for here and where he might be trying to play. Going for the Ponyx.
From the looks of things, actually, snipehunters getting ideal starts across the board here for all three team members, because Quantal opening up Kashtira Fenrir is great when it's a one-of. Dimension Shifter as Flaunderies against any other deck is great. And now look, you have the Fire King Island, you have the Ponyx, everything is in motion.
Yeah.
Well,
Ooh, maybe Josh's hand couldn't quite get there. We do see 2 back row and a pass.
I thought the was because the Kit Colossus was not royal finished.
oh, yeah, fine. Thus proving
I don't have my binoculars open yet, but I am a little bit curious what Josh is going to be able to do from this position. Oh, that is painful. And just thrust opening up.
And just making sure you saw it, we do know the Heroes Future is now currently playing under Max C. That did resolve, so we're going to see what that entails and how much he's going to give him.
Okay, we're going to chain the Skyburn for the thrust and the Ponyx. This will put the Ponyx in the graveyard at least, which will then prevent the thrust from just being able to add the card to the hand, which is very important.
And looking at the records on the right-hand side of your screen as well, just, you know, Heroes Future approaching this as the first seed from their group, still would be hesitant to call snipehunters underdogs just because of the prestige of their players and the reputation that they have.
When you come in winning from last year, I believe you don't get the term underdog. You are not entitled to that title. You are the king, and even if you didn't grab the most wins in the first round.
Oh, Heavy Storm against Josh is something we're very familiar with. When he ran Labyrinth yesterday against CR2 against FCG.
And we see a grass looks greener. Okay, milling 7 cards. We did hit the Destrudo, they always do. We did hit the Havness. So we have a name. Do we have anything else? We have the Sullic. Getting that add for a monster. That's a huge hit to be able to add the Shiren. Or the Rhino Heart. Yeah, that works too.
Looking back down at Duel B, it looks like that turn also got passed back. After the Dimension Shifter kind of pass, it is now back in Snipe Hunter for Duel B.
There was an interesting play where the Ponyx, I believe, was either Change of Hearted or Snatch Stolen or something, and then it was tributed for the Swallows quick play spell to add the Rabina to hand, but the Rabina got interrupted, unfortunately, so we stopped there.
But very clever, though.
We see the Royal Rare Kit Kalos getting hit by the Royal Rare Infinite Impermanence. That's a pretty big deal, but 3 cards in hand, still kind of scary.
Yeah, definitely do have a lot of extension opportunities, but also the graveyard is where we look at as the kind of secondary hand for that Tearlament's deck. And so
we know
far
there's
from
a
what we saw,
Destrudo in
there
there.
was a lot of good stuff there, yeah.
Activating Rhino, activating Scream. I mean, this is not where I want to be when I'm playing against Tearlament, but let's see what we get here. Sending the Tearlament's Kashtira for more mills. It looks like we hit a Horus monster.
I think we hit Fenrir as well, but it happens.
Milling the Heartbeat to get a trap
that's
add.
Nice.
Grabbing the Sullic right back, nice.
I mean, even at this point, if he was just to go battle phase, sit another one and pass, that's a pretty hefty board to go through. If you can just pop the Fire King Island, that might be hard to come back from.
Going for the Destrudo, targeting the Rhino probably. Getting that Maxi draw. I mean, it's a difficult spot being on the Maxi right here because you have to wonder, can I actually deal 8,000 damage, or do I just try to set up the best-ish board I can under the circumstances?
I mean, I gotta imagine they're going for the 8K.
What?
Okay.
Oh,
I haven't seen that one in a while.
Oh, very interesting. Have we seen that at all this tournament? That is a very interesting play right there. Rhino Heart is, you know, part of the Vsauce Starcross sort of lore, so that is why it meets the stat requirements.
Is this an 8 and a 3? What are we bringing out? We're bringing out the Psychic End Punisher. And he's down to 4K life points. What a move.
What a play. 7,500 Psychic End Punisher.
That's it.
That's it right there.
That is done. What a play.
I don't think we've seen those techs at all this tournament, even in the games that we previously spectated from Heroes Future.
And despite a strong opening for the Fire King Snake Eye build from Josh, it is Tusk who manages to take it in favor of Heroes Future.
I'm jealous. The Viscer Astrolabe into the Destrudo to make the Psychic End Punisher? I'd put that in my deck. Oh, we do have ourselves, so we have a Tearlaments versus a U-Bowl going down in Duel C. We do have the Phantom of U-Bowl on the board. I don't know if it was negated via an Imperm or the Solic on the board, but we will see as we continue.
Yeah, Tearlaments Kashtira now coming out as well. Primeval Planet Perla Rhino also on the field. You have the Fenrir we alluded to earlier. Everything looks pretty good for Tearlaments players so far in this series.
Assuming that Phantom is not negated, yeah, it's going to be hard to play through with just having one negate on the board, and they are just building and building.
Again, we mentioned how good Quantal was at Tearlaments last year. Again, just going against Jesse Cotton, coming out on top. Seeing him stick with this deck, really impressive, because it seems to be paying off so far.
All these players. I mean, they're even in a Duels Cup won without a Max C using Vanadium. I mean, who does that? I'll tell you, Quantal does.
Yeah. So, Yubel.
Oh, I love Yubel. God.
No, please.
You want to know more about Yubel?
Yeah, tell me.
Well,
tell me a bit about Yubel and how you outplay this.
Super polymerization. Now, you see, if I was in this seat, which I'm not because I'm not nearly good enough, I'd have super poly set. You negate with your Phantom of Yubel. You send the Spirit of Yubel to the graveyard, a Yubel pops out, you super poly the whole board, and you get to shake the opponent's hand and say, nice job, I just beat you. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be getting there, so we're going to see how Snipe Hunter continues to build the board, because they are going straight into a Kaleido Heart.
Yeah, Kaleido Heart typically just finishes the game. Once that comes out, it is really difficult to make any kind of comeback here, and just goes to show how dominant Quantal's field currently is.
Plus the field spell. Once you have those combined in the field spell, 2 cards just getting sent back immediately.
Yeah, Primeval Planet Perla Rhino, really, really valuable. Probably one of the most impactful in-theme field spells that we've seen.
Yes, and we have to assume that the Phantom of Yubel was negated. Solic is on the board. He did not attempt to tribute to negate, so I'm going to go on a limb and say it was negated by Solic.
And I do want to point out that when we jumped into this game, even though it might have not initially looked like it, it is actually the Yubel player's turn right here. It's just what we keep talking about with Tearlaments. They don't really care whose turn it is. They're going to do their plays anyway. So all of those fusion summons, all those effects I just activated were on the other player's turn, which gives you a huge advantage. We're going to activate the, we're going to get to the Spirit of Yubel through the Squirmer effect in the grave, I believe that was. So let's see what we got.
I will always appreciate when they say it's our turn.
It's our turn now.
But you get the Squirmer in the grave, so we'll see how they continue to play this out. There are options, there really are, but you're dealing with a Fenrir, you're dealing with the field spell.
The Rukalos, potentially, if that hasn't been used already.
Yeah.
2 cards in hand. It's looking a little rough. Tearlaments, I mean, how many different decks can I say this about? But Tearlaments, once they really get going, once they fill up that graveyard and they got so many floating effects on the board, it just gets really difficult, because even if you do manage to break the board, you can't actually set anything up that will prevent them from doing things. Yubel doesn't have a way to Abyss Dweller, so we're going to see the Crash to deal 3k. Not bad.
Will we see a Typhoon?
Superstar Slayer, Typhon, Sky Crisis.
You're right. I can't read. I
think we're going to see Phantom of Yubel. Okay, the second copy of this. And just a pass there. This doesn't look great. Not feeling this one.
If you are the Yubel player, how do you come back? How does Goryoku make this comeback against Quantal?
Right. I mean, I would love to see the 2 cards in hand to see what else I'm working with, but you got 1 negate, and if it's sent off the board, that's kind of it. And Destrudo's coming on the board, so we're going to get extra protection looking from Quantal's side.
This will give us a Baron to floor, presumably, immediately here, which will be quite strong, being able to pop the back row potentially.
Additionally, just to contextualize this is such an important win for Snipe Hunters to not go 0-3 in the opening set of games here.
They need to get on the board. They need to. And it's possible. It is possible, but we're going to have to see how it plays out.
I think at this point, looking at the field, it is pretty likely that Quantal will be able to get this one. Outside of like some really wacky stuff happening in the hand of Heroes Future here, I don't actually know if there's anything that they could realistically do. We're not going to go to 5 summons. I doubt that. We have multiple interactions on the field to even stop potential Nibiru. I mean, yeah, we're going to take out the Nightmare Pain there. Pretty big deal, so you don't take the damage every single time you attack.
And then Solik on Ubel just making it, unfortunately, a 0-0 monster with no effect.
And there's no opportunity to use the Phantom because the Baron, once it hits the board, that's a negate too. So if you're just tributing the Phantom to tribute it, that's obviously not great. And already on the board here, we can see 12,000-ish damage, I think.
Yeah,
10,000.
This should get snipehunters their first W, which, you know what, everyone here is competitive. So taking 1 out of 3, that's good because we're going to have another set right after, and all of a sudden, you can see a complete reversal of that.
Yep.
But great showing by both teams so far.
Yeah, but Heroes Future still in the lead here, 2-1 up, assuming Quantal does close here. Snipehunters behind, but
they've been here before.
shaken.
Yes.
They've been here before, and they've still made the comeback. I would not count anyone out. You can always, you know, I think that looking at Joshua Schmidt's hand there, just summoning the Ponic, setting 2 and passing, he did the best with what he had, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what he was looking for. So I think that hopefully in this next game, you know, the players will all draw a little bit better hands so we can see some high-powered gameplay.
But remember, Snipehunters lost their first match yesterday, and you see them sitting in the semifinal seats, sitting there with 26 total wins, so a little setback now doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, have to bounce back, and honestly, if we had to count on anyone to do so, it would be the accomplished players, the reigning world champions, Snipehunters. Conversely, looking at Heroes Future, just how good have they been so far?
They've been great. I mean, both these teams are incredible. We've talked about it already, but, you know, Heroes Future coming into today as the team to beat from yesterday's bracket, either bracket, the only team to go 4 wins, 1 loss, I believe. And then also we have the reigning world champions for Master Duel here, who obviously want to win. Both these teams are full of fantastic players, some of the best players in the entire world, if not the best players in the entire world, with all of these semifinal duelists. And I think that we are in store here for hopefully 2 more sets, not just 1.
And looking at the player surveys that were available in-game to view, you can see just how much respect Tusku commands from the other players here.
Oh, yeah.
Josh as well, very much a figurehead for competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And the return to WCS for both of these competitors and the teammates around them is amazing. So, I do just want to talk a bit more about Heroes Future and the teammates surrounding Tusk, because we mentioned,
yes,
you said it, Mr. Master Duel, like very, very prominent within the local communities in Japan. But
renowned.
Also, Moguro has been playing a lot of Centurion and Fire King in experience from what we've seen across the past couple of months. Here, so far, has just been rocking that Snake Eye Fire King to great success.
Absolutely, and I have it written on my notes here, right under it, just style. Sometimes it's not necessarily about just winning, but if you win in style, you get remembered. People like that.
Is that because you like the dance?
I love the dance. I love it.
Resolved?
Absolutely. Anytime a card resolves and it makes you happy, you got to express that.
I do also just want to praise Goryoku because in the preparation leading up to this, we noted that this is a player that favors Pearly, favors Labyrinth, brings Ubel to the World Championship, and so far has been performing fantastically.
All the 29 wins yesterday, 29 out of 45. When you said they were doing great, they weren't just doing great, they were the best team. They are the team to beat. Now, granted, like you said, the team that probably would have a great chance would be last year's winners, but they are the team to beat Heroes Future, and I'm excited to see how the next set of games wrap up.
Yeah, and you know, now that I know I talked about this yesterday a little bit too, but I'm very curious to see what decks we see today. This year, more so than last year, people are sticking to their bread and butter, the Ubel, the Fire King, Snake Eyes. Are these decks just so much better than the other decks, or is it consistency? What do you think it is that keeps players coming back to these, even when hard counter picks exist out there in these duelist sort of back pockets?
I think it's also investment of that limited card pool into these decks. Especially, you'll see the duelists that tend to pick the Snake Eye Fire King haven't really strayed from that. Actually, I believe Moguro hasn't played his secondary deck yet so far this tournament, because why would you when you're finding so much success with Snake Eye Fire King?
I know every time you asked, you're just like, are we going to see the second deck? Are we going to see the second deck? And no, it was always that main deck that just kept coming up yesterday over and over and over. But if it's not broken, why change it?
Not that this would necessarily be the only reason that it would happen, but one thing I want to point out with this particular format is that SP Little Knight, when we're looking at these deck lists, is primarily in that first deck spot. So if you're talking about 3 different players and they all have SP in their first deck, not that that means the second deck is worse just because it doesn't have SP. We see different decks that can function without that, but it really does make it harder. SP Little Knight is one of the most versatile cards in the extra deck. It's a great link too that's good as like a way to push through fields. It's a good interruption. It's a great card just if your hand isn't ideal. It is a fantastic link to end on if you only have 2 monsters, and not having access to that potentially in your secondary decks, I mean, that really does limit not only what you can do, but also it kind of limits what you can play. You're going to see sort of more stun strategies, more trap-based strategies that might not necessarily need SP Little Knight, but personally, you know, I think all these things do add up, and SP Little Knight is a big deal.
I also don't think Flaunderies needs SP Little Knight.
Yeah, probably
so,
not. Just to vanish off the prosperity, if anything.
All right, so we just got to worry about 2 other decks that could potentially use SP Little Knight. But as you see, the extra decks can be full of anything. Vicious Astrolaud and Psychic and Punisher came out of nowhere, and we didn't see those played at all yesterday. Now, maybe we missed them, but at least in the feature matches.
Incredibly clutch.
Yeah.
I really love Psychic and Punisher just because it's Psychic, it ends games, and it punishes you for thinking that the opponent is not going to take it.
Yeah, and I do want to mention, we've seen a couple of these activated, I think, throughout this tournament, and maybe not necessarily in the feature matches, but also in the lower matches. People are playing even Nightmare Cerberus as sort of SP Little Knight at home, and I think that is a pretty good option. Don't forget about the Nightmares. You know, they were really solid for a very long time. A couple of them are even forbidden at this point, but Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn, and Nightmare Cerberus are all fantastic cards. Maybe not as free as the SP Little Knight because you do have to discard, but you can potentially get that discard back if you do have a co-link, which is great. And I think that in this limited environment where you only have access to 3 copies of SP Little Knight, I'm pretty sure no one chose that as their shared card. Having those other options does help.
How dare you call them the Wish.com versions of SP Little Knight? They are incredible, especially when you think about their synergy with SP Little Knight, since they tend to point to each other, allowing them to also get, like you said, that free card draw back.
Hey, I mean, Cerberus can't be taken by Dark Charmers, so that's something.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, not the Wish.com, but just maybe the brother that doesn't get invited to all the cool parties?
I'm just stuck in the middle while you two have a conversation about the SP Little Knight versus Nightmare theme.
They both have a purpose.
Well, speaking of purposes, we're here to cover the semi-finals of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel category of the World Championship 2024. Again, the tournament was really competitive so far. Seeing just how snipehunters struggled in that opening match against CER2 x FCG, seeing how they struggled again in that final feature match against CER themselves. And on the other hand, we mentioned just how dominant Tasku's team of Heroes Future were in terms of establishing themselves as a force to beat in Group B.
One thing I wanted to point out there, in case you guys missed it, the Grasslook screener only milled 7 cards, and that wasn't because Josh had gone through a lot of his deck. We were looking at a 47-card deck. I know we talked about this at the very beginning of the day yesterday. How many cards do you play with Grass? Do you play 50? Do you play 60? It turns out just having a card that mills the top 7 cards of your deck, even if it's not 20, 7 is still pretty good, especially in a deck where every single card is good to mill.
And we haven't seen that much of the Grasslook screener because a lot of decks do commit it to either the branded or the Telemans, and it really helps both of these strategies, but a lot of teams actually choose one or the other.
We saw Jesse try to go for the left arm offering, and then it immediately got ashed, and it's very rough. So Grasslook screener, I mean, if you draw it, it's crazy, but maybe building your entire deck around drawing it, not the way to go.
I would build my deck around it because I like to lose, but it's fun. It's fun losing.
You can always get lucky.
When you mill 20 cards, and there's nothing better than that. Do people still play Needleworm in this format?
Needleworm?
Yeah, right? Doesn't it mill the top 5?
I don't think people have played Needleworm this decade.
I'm dating myself. Okay. Yeah, great.
Well, yeah. So still would consider Fire King Snake Eye the deck to beat, regardless of how successful Telemans has been.
Yeah.
Those two, however, do have their own level of dominance relative to the rest of the decks in the competition.
Do you guys, as duelists, do you ever look at some of these deck lists and you just think like how you want to incorporate some things? So looking through what we just saw, where the milling of cards, and you see the Tearlaming cards, and you see the Visa Starfrost, it just gets me thinking like, maybe I should do that. Maybe if I build a 60-card pile deck, I should throw these in, and I get my Vicious Astrolabe, and I get my Destrudo. It's like, you get to learn from these people.
And we've seen a couple different options here. I believe it was Quantal, or perhaps it was on Team 7, but with Trick Clown. Perform Mage Trick Clown was in one of the
wasn't
decks.
expecting that.
I believe it was. And what makes that card so interesting is that it helps you make, you know, rank 4s, potential Link monsters, and it's just a free card. Also not necessarily a bad draw. It is a level 4 monster. You can discard it. It's going to trigger no matter how it goes to the graveyard.
Exactly.
It's a very powerful card that we've seen in the past, but I think in Tier Limits right now, pretty cool option.
And on the topic of those level 4s, just seeing the innovation of these graveyard-centric strategies actually then adapt to have access to the rank 4 Abyss Dweller to shut down the opponent is really, really promising.
I mean, Duel is great against Fire Kings, it's great against Ubel, it's great against a ton of strategies in this format, not only for locking off potential combos, but locking off follow-up. We see, you know, so many of the graveyard effects that happen to give you more advantage when your turn rolls back around. Dweller can cut that off. If you think about all of the Snake Eyes Sinful Spoils cards in the graveyard, the spell cards, they both have different effects, and you can cut those off with the Dweller.
I think Dweller even buys you more time than the other card we were talking about, Typhon.
Typhon?
Super Star Slayer, Typhon, Sky Crisis.
That card, yes, Abyss Dweller will buy you 2 turns. Well, that card may only buy you 1. But again, you got to use 2 level 4s. Doesn't always happen. I like how you say that. It gets you excited every time.
It does, honestly.
Can you say it 3 times fast?
Great card. Probably not, but what I can say is that we are about to head into set 2 between Snipe Hunters and Heroes Future. Heroes Future taking the lead 2 games to 1, but it is certainly a series we have on our hands.
So we will be going to set 3 here unless Heroes Future is able to get that 3-0. We've seen it yesterday. It is possible. You can always do that. I mean, we've seen people do that, so don't count them out. It is the potential sweep right here, or at least a 5-1 sweep, but let's see what happens. Let's see which duel we are going to be checking out.
It will be Quantal versus Magaro here. Tier Elements, you have to imagine. Yep, there's the
Opening
Horus
up with
component.
Insetti.
Actually discarding the Max C off of that. Tier Elements versus, I suppose, Snake Eye Fire King.
Yeah, and I mean, I gotta say it. Royal Rare Insetti, Royal Rare King Sarcophagus. This is so great. I love these competitors' Royal Rares. It's awesome.
A reverse of the previous set where we saw Tusk's tier deck actually beat out the Snake Eye Fire King from Josh. So let's see if history repeats itself. Max C now coming down.
I think it's probably safe to say that Heroes Future does not have a Ash in hand, otherwise you would have Ashed Amsteady. But playing under Max C, we could see maybe they get one.
It's tough, and it is important, just in case you guys don't remember. I think most people know it, but you have to Max C pretty much immediately there because the Imseti and all the other Horus cards, their summon does not start a chain, so you don't want to get... that never feels good, right? Your opponent normal summons level 1, and then they link Kribo, and you haven't Max C'd yet. Same thing with the Horus cards. You want to do it preemptively. Might not feel good because it's like, oh, they could just, you know, pass and not summon, but I think that we are going to see a Triple Tactics talent drawing 2 cards. Okay, so not choosing to look at the hand. Obviously, there's no monsters to steal. Drawing Foolish Burial Goods. Is this going to send the Trivia Karma? Or potentially something else? I don't know. I guess there's all the tier limit cards.
Trivia Karma, very smart. I will say, I think every time we've seen Max C resolved, it was almost instantly followed by a Triple Tactics talent or a Triple Tactics thrust.
Now, one thing I do want to point out that's important to remember with tier limits, not only can they super combo off, and, you know, we've seen them make insane boards, and I think we might see Quantal do this right here, but we'll see. I think one of the things that makes them so viable in Master Duel is that they can actually play into Maxi pretty well, because all you really need to do is summon a Kit Kalos and get a trap card, set up your graveyard, and you can still do a ton on the opponent's turn. Remember, it's not the opponent's turn, it's our turn. So I think we might see that right here if we just go into Kit Kalos and pass, which is not a bad play at all. Honestly, maybe even better than some, you know, rogue decks end board can be just normally. So we're going to see the Kit Kalos summon here. I would not be surprised if this is the only special summon.
I mean, Primeval Planet Pillar Rhino itself as well, kind of soaking resources because you have to deal with it for fear of it generating even more advantage.
Ooh.
Foolish Burial to follow up on the Foolish Burial goods from earlier.
Maybe a Fairy Tale
Quantal's
Snow?
just getting to send whatever he wants.
I don't know. Oh, okay.
Put in the Keldon Grave, so we do have an interaction there. So we have a number of interactions, and, you know, we also have an unknown back row too.
That's
I
true.
think one of the cards in hand might be Maxi, just because of how willing Quantal was to send it with the initial
Imseti,
play.
We see the Volcanics come down.
So Volcanics is really interesting to me that it's found a place in the Fire King Snake Eye decks, and I guess that is a consequence of the fact that the shared card pool rule exists. Typically you'd see it in pure Fire King to act as an extender, to access Garunix to get you going again. But now actually finding a place for itself in a lot of the main decks for the Snake Eye Fire King players.
And we've talked about it before, but this is a card that is only available in Master Duel. It is not in the TCG right now. It is in the OCG, of course, but that is a pretty big difference between Fire King Snake Eyes in the Master Duel format versus the TCG format. There's obviously a lot of overlap if you know the basic combos, but this is a pretty new card in Master Duel, and it isn't out in the TCG, so you have to be prepared to play against it. You might see a couple different sort of sequences that you might not normally see in paper play.
Doug, have I seen this wrong, or am I looking at Duel A and there was 5 set cards in the back row for Snipe Hunters?
We are seeing 5 set cards versus 5 cards in hand, a Phantom Yubel on the board. I don't know, I mean, I guess the set cards you can't crash the Yubel monsters into.
And you know that now that Tusku is playing against someone else, the Heavy Storm is no longer a threat.
True, it is a limited card.
You're right.
We're going to mill the Scream with the Kit Callus here, by the way, by sending it with the Sulic. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. We have a Teal'c's Cashier in hand as well. That is very powerful.
The amount of recurrence here is just incomparable between the two decks based on what has been set up. Yes, Fire King Snake Eye can keep up, but that relies on a lot of things going right for Maguro.
Well, you also have the cards that can put, that's currently Kaleido sitting in the graveyard, that can also then begin to put back anything that Heroes Future attempts to even throw in the graveyard and use. You want to use this as a resource? No thank you, it's going back right in your deck.
And we mentioned just how quietly consistent Quantal has been for this team and how good he was last year in the Teal'c's format, continuing to show you why he is a world champion alongside his teammates.
We're going to send another Ulcanix to summon Diabellstar. Pretty good, I mean, one of the best extenders in the game right now. What are we going to set with the Diabellstar? Get that original Sinful Spoils. We did not have access to that already.
Original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye, of course, allowing access to the Ponix or any of the Snake Eye cards for the side of Maguro here, and will actually get answered by the Teal'c's Meta Noise.
So this was an unknown card. Remember, the Sulic was added, but the Meta Noise was unknown. This is a big problem. Yes, we're going to send the Havness now. This gets us another fusion summon. The Kit Kalos is in the grave right now, so we could go for the Rue Kalos potentially. I think that's pretty likely. Yeah, I'd assume that's what's going to happen.
Bonfire now coming out to search for Fire King Snake Eye cards and just helping out reinforce Maguro's hand. Still very, very formidable field and graveyard from the side of Quantal, but Snake Eye's Popular will go a long way to just helping establish this Fire King Snake Eye. Teal'c's Rule Kalos effect now actually coming out on the chain, so let's see what happens. Teal'c's Kashtira being sent.
I'm so sorry, I looked away. What was the set card, Ebers? For those that might have been looking at the ground or something?
The flip face down with
Yes.
the Diabellstar, the black one.
Okay, it got flipped face down. Thank you very much. I'm a professional here.
Legendary Fire King Ponix actually now able to be accessed. Maguro again just getting extension. Maxi hitting the grave again for Quantal. Haven't actually seen one activated.
So maybe it was just an initial, hey, I'm going first, I'm not going to use this, I need the resources.
Watching Poetry in Motion with the Teal'cs. Quantal, of course, establishing himself as a really consistent and competitive player within Europe. Almost qualifying for Worlds last year and actually being invited alongside Josh as one of the teammates. Emre rounding out that trio as well. Just really your first Master Duel World Champions. What more could you ask for? Facing off against them and with a lead at the moment, Heroes Future led by Tusku, one of the most accomplished, one of the most respected, one of the most powerful Master Duel players in the world, hence why he's in the semi-finals. Alongside Maguro, the Snake Eye Fire King of this tournament so far, and Goryoku, who has been doing good stuff with the U-Ball.
Taking a look down Duel B, it really looks like we have Snipe Hunters controlling the board. I saw Barone hit the board. I believe that's more Centaurions. You got 5 or 6 in hand. A Bistral just hit it against 2 in hand, 2 in the back row. So following up on B, that's going to be coming to, I would say, a conclusion pretty soon.
Looks like we're sending the Shyren with the Rhino Heart here, and this is going to allow us to go for another Fusion Summon. So this is a pretty formidable board. Once again, let's remember, we got Max Seed on turn 1, and this is still what we're able to do. Tearlaments is such a resilient deck. It's so versatile, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen it not only this year, but of course last year.
It looks like if we look at Duel B, that one's coming to an end. That should be a final blow coming up right now, giving Snipehunters the 2nd win and tying it up 2-2.
Yep, Emre ties up the set for Snipehunters here. We're 2-2, as Chill did mention. Quantal still in an advantageous position, even if the monsters have been cleared out of the field. So all eyes on this duel. Cleared out the field? No. Fused? Yes.
We're going for Kaleido Heart using the Rukalis on board and the Rhino Heart on board, so 2 cards on board. The Kaleido Heart is going to be pretty strong right here. Let's see what it does, though.
It's got to feel pretty good. You're playing with 2 of your buddies, and all of a sudden you see a big old W on their side. That's got to give some motivation to keep going.
Absolutely, and goodbye Ponix. It's shuffled right back into the deck.
So far, if the rest of this tournament is a litmus test for this, basically, we've seen Tearlaments just come out on top of Snake Eye Fire King way more often than not.
Over and over and over. It just seems like they can play around the more spicier tech cards that come out where, oh, yeah, it's me, or you Max see me. That's okay. We'll just play on your turn then.
We are seeing the original Sinful Spoils grab that Ponix right back. You know, if you missed it so much, here it is again. And that's pretty powerful. You can see the Sanctuary, which was added with the Ponix earlier in the turn, get activated. We're going to let us allow that Fire King Island to hit the board.
Yeah, and we mentioned before, Primeval Planet Pillar Rhino, one of the most impactful field spells within a theme. Fire King Island, very similar in that regard.
It's true, and unfortunately for me as a collector, was only available as a common for a long, long time. Still a beautiful card though, but...
Destroy the Volcanics, add the Sacred Fire King Garunix. I mean, this is where you want to be as a Fire King player. We are, you know, going through the motions here. The Volcanics is going to trigger as well. This looks pretty strong.
Sacred Fire King Garunix here, hitting the field, and that actually is a pretty formidable field for Maguro now. We said that the Tearlaments setup from Quantal was really powerful, borderline insurmountable, but Maguro seems to be doing pretty well trading back and forth so far.
About to say, I think the sequencing has been great, which we would expect from this level of player, and we might actually be able to find game here. I mean, we still don't know what the last card in hand is potentially. Let's take a look, though. I mean, maybe it's Nibiru. I kind of doubt it. It feels like we've seen no Nibirus this entire tournament, so I don't know if I'm going to expect it here, but we are seeing the Kirin activate. This is almost enough for game on board already. I mean, we have 39, we have 27, whatever the Kirin special summons. Of course, the Kaleido Heart does have 35 right now, but let's see what happens.
And Heroes Future, of course, Japan's super team versus Snipehunters, the reigning world champions from Europe. Really, really impressive gameplay so far. They've tied up the game count, and they are now looking to see if they'll continue to tie and head into that third set, or if one of them can take a 2-game lead over the other.
When you say super team, do you mean kind of like Captain America Civil War, where 2 sides, one's best buddies going against each other, or just 2 really good teams?
The players are really accomplished as individuals in their own right, and coming together under one banner is not fair for the opposition.
But could we pitch it as a movie to a studio one day?
We shall see, as Fire King High Avatar Garunix actually gets linked off for the Dark Charm and Gloomy. You mentioned this earlier, Doug, that there is the potential for that as an extension.
Of course. I mean, these Charmer cards have shown, I mean, we've seen Dark, we've seen Hida, we've seen Lina. We've even, I mean, pretty much all of them have had their moment in the game. I think even last year we did see some of the Water Charmer in the Tearlament Mirror match. But we will see here where we go with the Dark Charmer. They're just so good because it means that you can turn any 2 monsters into now 3 material for a link, and then you can just keep climbing and climbing. And it makes playing Fires and Darks kind of dangerous because you know that your opponent could have these, most likely has these in their extra deck.
Doug, I'd let you be in my movie.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You can sit on the side.
We're going to activate the Keldo, shuffling back 3 cards in the deck, or 3 cards in the grave. That will make the Dark Charmer not actually resolve. We no longer have the target for it.
Actually very well played there to use the Keldo reactively. Typically you'll use it to interfere with the opponent's graveyard to deny some plays there. But having the kind of presence of mind to be able to recognize, you need to make a change on your side is great.
And remember, that was the card that Quanto Foolish burialed when he got Maxied. So we're not really seeing necessarily a huge board on the Fire King side of the field. Let's see what they end up going for. This might be a Princess into some higher links. Maybe not, though.
Oh, the SP.
It is just
Knight.
SP Little
I
Knight.
say just
Okay.
an SP Little Knight. It's still SP Little Knight.
Yeah,
It's
just
still
one of the
very
best cards
scary.
in the game. We go the SP Little Knight on field effect. It is main phase 2, so we don't have to worry about not being able to attack directly.
Sullick is gone, so there's your continuous, essentially infinite impermanence now gone.
So we draw to 2 cards in hand. I'm not really sure. Is there anything in the graveyard that actually can activate at this point?
I mean, Primeval Planet Pillar Rhino is still on the field, though, so I'm
Yes.
hesitant to count out the Telements deck from...
Grief
actually
is a
coming
good
back.
draw, too, especially in this situation.
Kaleido Heart making a return. For a brief period.
Yep.
But, hey, she's back. And of course, we're going to get the Pellerino effect, correct?
Yeah, Primeval Planet Pillar Rhino should be resolving here.
I think it'll be after the Habits.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we will get the Kaleido Heart effect to target a card and shuffle it back. I'm assuming this will force the SP. Let's take a look, though.
Yeah, so the face-down monster, remember, is Diabellstar the Black Witch. But actually, that looks to be the target. I think Quantal at this point knew that SP would be activated in response. And
So by doing this, you still get rid of the Diabellstar. And don't forget, you know, I think it is easy to forget because she has so many other good effects. Diabellstar does have an effect on the opponent's turn when it goes to the grave. So I think that, you know, is a decent enough reason to get rid of it right here. I think it's a good, very good play there, getting rid of the SP and getting rid of the Diabellstar, preventing some of that follow-up. And we're making a Kit Kalos.
Oh man, a Kit Kalos with an open board. This is going to be rough. Now there are still cards that are sitting in Heroes Future's graveyard that can pop back out, but it all depends on Heroes Future being able to destroy a fire monster to get that chain started.
And that shuffle back does mean that we see Primeval Planet Pillar Rhino start to come online again.
Popping that Sanctuary, of course, you need to get rid of that before you deal with the island. Now, popping the island is going to be good because you can get rid of their sort of follow-up, but they don't have any monsters to destroy.
And I will note that despite losing 2 of the first 3 games in that set, Snipe Hunters have been able to make a comeback and win both of the others here. Josh was able to take down his opponent, and we moved to 3 wins for Snipe Hunters versus the 2 of Heroes Future, but this duel is not over yet. Quantal taking on Maguro.
I know it's only a chain 2, but this is going to be a lot of interactions that are about to happen. You have the other Tearlaments getting sent to the
Fairy Tale
graveyard.
Snow hits
Fairy
the
Tale
graveyard
Snow off
there.
the top. Yep, absolutely. I mean, at this point, we have milled a decent amount of our deck. I mean, at least like a quarter of it. So the more that you mill with Tearlaments, the more inevitability starts to come into play here, because when you have those bombs in your deck, like Fairy Tale Snow, as soon as you hit that, I mean, that has to be one of the best random mills that you can get. You don't really have a way to directly send it outside of like a Foolish Burial where the Tearlament cards you do. Fairy Tale Snow going to banish 7 spells. That's what you love to see. You don't want to banish monsters.
Now we're looking at what, 7K on board at the moment? No, 7,350.
Quick maths.
7,350 is not quite 8,000, however, but here we go into maybe Abyss Dweller to shut down the graveyard. No, Dugaris.
So we've seen this a couple times, I think even from Quantal. Dugaris can special, it can draw, it can do everything. Skip the battle phase to your next turn. Oh, we're going to double the attack. That'll
that
put
should
it
be
to
game. Yeah,
what a good play.
82 on board.
And it's a
And
Nibiru! But you have the Rukalos.
We have the Rukalos to negate, but Rukalos will have to send for that, which will mean that it'll be off the board. If it is sending itself here, it will be off the board. Maybe we have a Chillman's card in hand. That's really what it's going to come down to. If it has to send itself, it won't come back at 7,000.
It sends itself. Oh.
So, I mean, I want to keep in mind here, the huge counter. That is one of the first and only times we've seen Nibiru resolve, and it did keep Heroes Future in this game.
But you do
Snow
have
is
Snow
coming
coming back out. Yeah.
So we have 1,200 with the Snow,
We're looking at a nice
30, 50. I mean, we're close. We have 6550 on board right now. That's good. I mean, that's good. You do have to kind of worry about that Fire King Island because that is follow-up, but you still have the Rukalos.
Yes. So one summon you can negate, you'll have to summon Rukalos, but that's fine. And you still
And
have...
probably going into like SP here with the Fairy Tale Snow and Grave. I think it would be very difficult
We are
to
going to SP,
deal with
yeah.
this
Do you
board.
just banish the Fire King Island? Then?
Absolutely. Let them draw it. They got a hard
of
draw to
course.
W.
See you later.
This is a top deck right here. This is what's going to determine it.
It's like, what top deck can you draw that will deal with the SP, the Rukalos, the Kaleido Hearts coming back, don't forget that, and the Fairy Tale Snow Engrave.
I was saying all day yesterday, Sphere mode.
You know, unironically, this would be insane for Sphere mode.
If you draw Sphere mode right now, you win. Of course, nobody ever takes my advice just because I've never been top 100.
Things looking pretty good for Quantle here with the Tearlaments deck. Can he continue to add to snipehunters' lead in this set? We'll see. Maguro, Snake Eye Fire King, it has ways back into this game. Tell me a bit, Dazif, about what those ways could be. This
Probably
is
not normal summon max.
Oh.
Probably not. You know, that I like doing that, though. It's like showing your opponent, hey, by the way, I drew this, you know, not as my 6th card, but it feels like the 6th card. Drawing that after your opponent just special summoned 50 times doesn't sound great.
I like how that happened and Quantle didn't even crack a smile. He's still all business all the time. World title on the line. We will see who will be our first finalist based on the results of the next set, but who will approach that either with a tied up 3-3 or a 4 versus 2 lead for snipehunters. This game will decide.
I think this weekend, how many times have we seen just Max C on the board as a normal summon or special summon? We're coming up on 5 times.
Quite a bit, quite a bit. And I think that what we're noticing here, and I've noticed this even when myself, you know, I've gone day 2 of a YCS or whatever, which is nothing like this, but I think that when you go to the second day, it's a totally different environment. The players aren't necessarily going to be as animated until they win that title, and they are locked in. They want to make sure there are no missteps, no misclicks, no misplays. And I think that that's why we're not seeing them be as animated.
No, have this normal summon here, you have to consider this to be just Underworld Goddess of the Closed World?
Just for fun?
We haven't seen that summon once this weekend.
Just for fun?
Yep, there we go. Underworld Goddess of the Closed World.
It's the safest way to lethal right there.
Okay.
That's kind of crazy.
Yep.
Well, it's giving you 1 negate from the graveyard.
Maguro does manage to hold out for another turn.
From Quantle's perspective, though, we now are on the crackback with 9,000 damage on board versus 1,450 life points. All 3 cards have good interactions. Like you said, Chilled, the Underworld Goddess is not only used for breaking boards, it also does have that graveyard negation effect, which is especially handy in a matchup like this.
Yeah, any of the competitors' decks, you get an Underworld Goddess, and it's, you know, you're turning off a little bit of the graveyard. She's right up there with Abyss Dweller.
Shout out to Abyss Dweller.
We've seen it a few times. It's been quite strong.
Did you know it was a dragon sitting in a cave? It took me the longest time to realize
It's a dragon dwelling in a cave.
You are right. I had no idea.
But what is dwelling in Maguro's hand at the moment? Can it bring back this game and tie up the set for Heroes Future, or will snipehunters take it to a 4-2 lead?
I would be very surprised if it is good enough. I think that we are seeing a situation here where maybe even though Quantle couldn't find game over the last couple turns, he has been slowly and handedly taking control of the board, very similar to what we saw yesterday with Pearly, where Pearly might not actually win the game really fast, but is this going to be a Salamangreat All Mirage getting summoned here? This isn't just a Link 1, it also has a little bit of a protection effect. Diabellstar getting summoned.
That was our one unknown card, okay.
Yeah. Can't activate the Wanted. It's a quick play spell right here. We're going to go into a Link 2.
What are we building?
I don't know. I feel like most of these decks don't have 2 copies of SP Little Knight. We're going to try to go for the Hita here.
Hita can then grab, I guess, Ash Blossom.
To
Ash
bring
Blossom.
back
Oh, no, sorry.
Garunix.
It will actually just trigger the Garunix.
Yes, because the Fire Monster was destroyed. Okay, I like where this is going.
Underrated effect of that card.
Yeah.
But both Underworld Goddess and Rukalos, could they both handle that?
Well, we are in the damage step.
Snake Eye Ash being added. Sacred Fire King Garunix now coming out as well.
What would you clear off the board right now?
I'm not sure, because if you put the Tearlaments cards in the graveyard, they'll have further effects.
Yeah.
But it looks like one of the Tearlaments cards is going to get sent to the graveyard here. Sacred Fire King Garunix actually managing to swing over that one, and Snake Eye Ash now starting another sequence.
And what was, I just wanted to point out real quick, the reason that we couldn't use like the Rue Kalos or the Unrolled Goddess was because it was chain blocked. So
Was there a chain block?
the
Okay.
Hida was chain link 2, the Sacred Fire King Garunix was chain link 1. So, you know, the Garunix is what you want to stop, but unfortunately it's kind of blocked down there beneath the Hida.
Now, we don't know the one card in Quanto's hand right now, but it's kind of looking like he might have, Hero Searcher might have carte blanche to do whatever they want to their Snake Eyes combo.
Yeah, we have really seen this go back and forth. You know, maybe I counted Fire Kings out a little bit too early. I did kind of forget about that Garunix that's been engraved for several turns now.
And there's the big boy Flame Burst Dragon, something you don't want to see when you're only staring down with one Kaleido. Now, we still have the Underworld Goddess effect, so if Flame Burst goes to the graveyard, we should be able to negate that if we wanted to.
Unless, once again, it can be buried underneath a chain link 2.
Another chain link, you're right.
But you can't always, you know, do that. We are going to see the effect on the board.
Yep, there goes the Underworld Goddess to the closed world.
Okay, removing that graveyard negate.
From Quanto's perspective here, I mean, the good news is you know every card your opponent has. It's all completely known knowledge. But the bad news is you might not have any interactions for your opponent starting to go through their entire combo.
I love what I'm seeing. It's like he's putting together a thing with duct tape and rubber bands and paper clips, and he's able to build something formidable. Imagine building like a jet plane with scraps. That's exactly what Heroes Future is doing right here.
We are seeing the Sunlight Wolf activate, getting an add back of the Kieran, an insanely powerful effect. I don't think we've seen that activated too much this weekend. It is a very critical part of the deck. You know, that free add is very good, but we don't always see it. We're going to go into a Link 4, potentially, or maybe this is going to be the Prince. Yeah, probably Link 4.
Yeah, that's going to be our
Appaloosa 3.
And you know you're sitting on Skyburn, you have a Fire King Ponix inboard, you're going to start blowing up the field, and you're sitting on an Appo for 3. What a turn. What a 180 things just occurred.
Yeah, this has been incredibly back and forth. No one has been out of this. The Appaloosa will be able to negate the Kaleido Heart. It will go down to 1,600, which is not as powerful. And then you have to wonder from Quanto's perspective, your opponent's at 300 life points. They have a Wanted face down. They have the Kieran in hand. The Ponix is getting add back. So you can't discount the Kieran interaction here, but the Appaloosa is going to be the hardest part to deal with.
You can also discount just hard drawing something that might be 1,900 attack points and just running over the Appo.
That is true. Where's that Gemini Elf when you need it?
Exactly. Left it back in 4th grade 20 years ago.
And despite the Snake Eye Fire King deck historically throughout this tournament, throughout day one, and even throughout game one of this set, being a disadvantage versus the Tearlaments deck, we actually see Maguro managing to potentially edge this one out.
We're going to see with just a pass and knowing you have Appo too.
I mean, 25 plus 16 is, we're almost there. So Quanto's hand must not be looking so hot.
I want to see the dance again. I want to see the dance.
An interaction. I'm not entirely sure. Going to see the Kieran activate.
That's 2,400.
I mean, this is, if there's no interactions from Quanto's side, this is going to be it. What an interesting game. This has been incredibly back and forth. Both players at different points down huge amounts of card advantage and able to come back. And that really does show the power of both of these decks. You know, we've talked about so many times why Tearlaments keep popping up, why Fire King keeps popping up. And you are seeing it right here. There are not many decks that have this much staying power. And we are going to see Fire Kings pick it up.
That was incredible. It looks like an exhausted battle right there.
This is why Maguro has not changed from Snake Eye Fire King all tournament long.
You want to see that. Look at the energy. Look at the happiness. And honestly, the thumbs up to the opponent as well. That's all I can ask for. Just a good game. What a great job.
Thumbs up to camera as well.
So we've seen 2-1. 2-1.
Yep.
Now we are going into the last game. These competitors are all completely even. What are we expecting to happen in this final game?
Things are 3-apiece right now, but honestly, like we've seen each member of each team win out on a game.
And you can almost cut the tension with a knife. Obviously, these players want to have a good time. Obviously, they want to, you know, have some fun playing Yu-Gi-Oh! But we are in the semifinals of the Master Duel World Championships. You got the highest seeded team from yesterday going 4-1 with Future Heroes, and you also have the reigning world champions from last year with Team Snipehunters. This is going to be a crazy one. I'm glad that we're not just seeing a complete blowout. Luckily, I think when you get to this point, unless one side is like bricking every single game, you're not going to see that. But it is very cool to be going to the final games here, and you just need to see one team get 2 wins. This is what it all comes down to.
Yeah, and I did say that each player won from each team, but actually it was Snipehunters who had each representative win a single game so far. Whereas for the side of Heroes Future, it is the Fire King Snake Eye from Maguro that has picked up 2 wins.
Okay, so you're going to want to see a little bit of back and forth going on, but when I kind of look at this, right, it is a reset. This is a clean slate. Even if you lost both of your matches, it does not matter now because your team needs you. You put the past behind you. It is 3-3. Best of 3 wins right now.
Indeed. And both these teams now coming into this need to refresh. It's been reset to a single set. Whoever takes 2 of these next 3 will win it.
Yep, and we also have the other semifinal match going on as well. I don't think we have the result of that one yet. And then do keep in mind, which is nice, that these competitors will get a decent break between the semifinals and the finals. It'll give them time to sort of refresh, get some lunch, you know, drink some water, and be prepared for that final match. Because yesterday they played 5 rounds of Swiss, but today we are only playing, they're only playing 2 matches, which is a lot of pressure on those 2 matches.
Well, so it was 5 rounds of round robin, just going back and forth, and that was when you're doing that for, I mean, what, 8 hours, 9 hours?
Yep.
And some of them flew in from all over the world. That takes a toll on you. I mean, I only flew 4 hours, and I wanted to sleep for 24 hours.
Right, and especially these players that are from nowhere near North America. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, that's what makes them world champions. When you can get up 6 o'clock in the morning and compete at this hour against other people who are just as good.
And just to further contextualize this, these are 2 of your top 4 teams in the world for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel right now, and they are spearheaded by some of the most accomplished players in the world. Tusk, for the side of Heroes Future, is the most popular Master Duel player in Japan. He is so good at the game, and he's matched off against Joshua Schmidt, who is returning to the world stage for, what was it, sixth time?
At a minimum. He has returned to the world stage. He's had 4 YCS wins. He was last year's world champion. He's competed in 6 world championships. He's taught me everything I know. Well, not everything, but we got a chance to play together in the second Master Duel Invitational, and he
just as prestigious as the world championship when you think about it.
If not more, because it had me.
Right.
But you know, he set me up with
a. Has you.
Well, okay, but like, you know, not this level. Well, the broadcast is lucky to have me. But no, he set me with a Vanadium deck, and I went 3-0. And I knew deep down there was a sense of pride, almost like a father when his son hits his home run for the first time.
And it is 3-0 that would be the ideal score for either of these teams here, but 2-1 is enough to make it and progress into the finals. You see, they are resetting themselves, they're gathering their thoughts, they're approaching this. Maguro looking pretty happy in the back there, ready to play Snake Eye Fire King, you have to imagine, for a 3rd time this series.
If we could see a dance from any of the competitors, hey man, that means they're having a good time. That's all I can ask for.
We might see a pop-off after this one. I mean, getting to even have a chance to be in the finals is a huge deal, but especially, you know, these are 2 incredible teams. I feel like we keep saying that, but they are very excited to be able to play in the next round. And it all comes down to this.
And I do wonder what this means for the likes of Josh and Emra in particular, because playing Snake Eye Fire King, arguably the best deck in the format, and losing, whereas finding a win with that Labyrinth build that was so strange, and got heavy stormed for our opening round yesterday, but also Emra, the pet deck, the Flunderies that was so good in day 1, opened this with a loss, and then Centurion was what managed to find a way back in.
Oh, okay, but we've seen the Centurion. It's a super heavy Samurai Centurion build we've been seeing, correct?
From
I think Emra is on a regular
just
one.
On
just a regular Centurion.
I will say,
okay,
you know,
cool.
we mentioned that Tier Limit deck, and we didn't see it on the feature, but I believe Josh actually did play, or sorry, not Tier Limit, Labyrinth. I believe Josh actually did play Labyrinth that last round and got the win, so maybe, you know, it has the feature match curse, but in terms of just being a game, it still has the capacity to win. We saw a lot of different trap cards. It looks like it's maybe not super monster heavy. I don't know. I mean, I tried to look in the bottom corner. I saw Lady, I saw Lovely, as you expect. Don't know if I saw any furniture cards, but like I said yesterday, many times Labyrinth does have two pretty different builds that you can play, and it really is up to the competitors which one they want to bring.
And I will say, as someone who once took a top 3 at a local of about 6 people, the scariest thing that you could see is a backboard of 5 cards. There's nothing scarier than that. I would rather go against...
Unless you have Heavy Storm in hand.
Unless you have Heavy Storm, in which then, I mean, just good luck. But, you know, there's always Solemn Judgment and cards like that can potentially counter it. You never know what an all-trap deck is running.
Well, I was going to say, you know, I don't think we've seen it yet, but I know some competitors do have Red Reboot in their backup decks.
Very exciting.
Don't really see it in the primary deck that they're bringing because I don't think there's enough trap cards in the format, especially with Infinite Impermanence might not necessarily be in every single deck to warrant main decking Red Reboot, but it is in some secondary decks. So if you do happen to match up, I think the situation would be if your teammate just played against Labyrinth, for example, or any other sort of deck like that, then when they play against that other person, you tell them, oh, hey, watch out for this. Maybe then they switch to the Red Reboot.
So following the games we've just seen, where we saw, especially in the feature matches, Snake Eye Fire King from Heroes Future take down the Tearlaments from Snipe Hunters, and also the inverse with Heroes Future's Tearlaments taking down the Fire King Snake Eye as well.
Absolutely.
I am very curious to see how we approach this next set now that those two decks are free of matchups from each other.
Right.
Well, it's also fun, too, when it comes to it, when a little bit of the excitement is not knowing what your opponent potentially has, but essentially this is, quote-unquote, round 6, so the mysteries should not be existing anymore. You kind of know what's going into it. And, you know, I don't like that as much because sometimes if you can get like a surprise deck that you just didn't really expect was going to pop off, that's always exciting to see, but maybe you don't want surprises in the semifinals and the finals. You kind of want to know what's going in, especially when it comes to a high-level card game.
I mean, I think that Psychic End Punisher is a perfect example. The Vicious Astrolabe, I mean, we didn't expect that.
No.
I don't think any other Tearlaments players are expecting that. And that is one of the cool things about Tearlaments. I mean, we were talking about yesterday the King of the Swamps with the Dark World Fusion cards. You can play all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That trigger when they're in the graveyard or have effects that work with other cards when they're in the graveyard. So that is one of the cool things about playing that deck. You can build it a lot of different ways. Yeah, you're going to include the names and you're probably going to include the Horus cards, but a lot of it is up to player preference.
Let me date myself again. The Lightsworn cards.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And they've seen relevance for what, over a decade? They're right up there with, oh, what's his name? Alistar the Invoker, who's seen play for over a decade. Fantastic card, by the way. It's never going to die.
There you go. And the Lightsworn cards do have some new support in the TCG. Hopefully, we do see those in Master Duel soon.
Let's see, Ibri. So I'm talking about my movie with all of the duelists. Who would you play in the movie? You playing Josh? You playing Quantum?
Anyway, semifinals, set 3, coming soon.
Here we are.
Here we are.
What do you guys
movie.
think has
Only this fantastic show in front of us.
We're in a movie right now. I feel like I'm living it. What do you think has the higher win rate this tournament? Fire King Snake Eyes or Yubel?
I would assume Fire King Snake Eye, if only because we haven't seen too much success for the Yubel decks, and oftentimes when we've seen Yubel, it's been a mirror match where obviously one has to lose, one has to
I
win.
mean, we've seen a couple
Say it to my face. Say it
5
to my
monster
face.
boards, 6 monster boards crashing into stuff. I don't know, though, if we've seen the Yubel deck beat a lot of the Fire King Snake Eyes. So if Yubel is so powerful that it can beat everything else, that still makes it very good, but it still puts it at 2nd place.
I might have a Yubel bias, but I'm pretty sure the games I've seen, Yubel has won 317 games and has lost 0 times this weekend.
It's done pretty good. It's done pretty good. I don't think
Undefeated.
it's as successful as the Fire King Snake Eyes, though. And I will say, I don't believe any other versions of Snake Eyes has made it to the 2nd day here. I don't think the Rescue Ace player made it in. I'm not sure if there were any other variants, but I believe that Fire King Snake Eyes is the choice. And I think that Volcanics is actually a big reason why in Master Duel specifically,
Yep.
Fire King Snake Eyes is so
Oh, they are pumped. You can hear them from here.
Snake Eye is the deck to beat, but Tearlaments has shown that it can contest, and we've seen so many good decks from these competitors, and we'll hopefully see a few more now as we do head into set 3 between Heroes Future and Snipe Hunters.
Woo! The final set.
The final set to decide your finalist at the 2nd ever Master Duel category of the World Championship.
You are hoping for a good hand. You're hoping to win the coin toss. You're hoping to avoid Max C.
May your combos be plenty and your hands have no bricks.
I think we just saw Heroes Future win all of the coin flips.
We see it right here. The Nightmare Pain comes out, but unfortunately the Ghost Ogres get destroyed.
Ghost Ogre and start Psy-Frame Gamma. That is unreal. It does not feel good to get Gamma. Not only does your effect go to the, it doesn't resolve, but also the
the Psy-Frame.
Okay, so one thing that is kind of tricky about Ash Blossom on Gamma is that you now know the Gamma is still in their hand and it can still be activated. Now in this case, luckily you are kind of hoping that the Nightmare Pain getting stopped is so important that it's worth Ash Blossoming. And if you don't have any other monster effects to activate right now, you're hoping that if your opponent puts even one monster on the board, they can no longer Gamma when your turn rolls around.
And again, this is a race to 2 victories for both of these teams. 3-3 on the scoreboard. Heroes Future, snipehunters. It is Yubel from Goryoku that is currently leading here.
Now, since Nightmare Pain can only be activated one time, it is preventing a lot of the protection that a Yubel player would normally have. Normally, when Nightmare Pain's on the board, your opponent can only be forced to attack Yubel monsters. They're going to take the damage themselves, but not having that is going to be a little more challenging.
And also having commit the Ash Blossom and Joy Spring already to run
This is such a good situation with the effect failure because you have waited for a monster to hit the board. Well, of course, your effect failure you have, but you have hit a monster on the board. The Gamma is now stuck in the hand. What an excellent sequence of events by Emery right here. And while the Nightmare Throne is very scary, if you have the Veiler in hand to stop it, that's going to be great.
Already down to 2 cards in hand, though, from Emery, so a little bit concerning given the state of the game right now. However, he's put a stop to what has been planned by Goryoku so far on the Yubel.
And something I want to point out, so that Effect Failure just didn't negate the search of the opening of the Spirit Gates. It also negated the ability to do another extra normal summon. But we're going to see
Phantom of Yubel
coming on the board, and that just might be it.
And as we've talked about before, one of the things that makes Phantom of Yubel so strong is that you can shuffle back the cards from grave, hand, or field. You do not have to get a setup specifically. You can do that to help dodge Maxi by just launching it immediately, or you can do it in a situation like this where you don't really have a way to get to any of your combos. You can at the very least put a Phantom on the board.
But you're right, though. That does tie up a little bit of having the Psy-Frame Gamma gear in hand. So opting to go for the Phantom of Yubel negate instead of having to do the Psy-Frame Gamma gear.
But importantly, if the Phantom of Yubel does use its effect, it tributes itself off the board, so then the field would be clear.
But unfortunately, if he tributes...
We actually see the turn ending here. The Yubel is done.
So yes, you're right, because they could, instead of destroying the normal Spirit of Yubel, he could destroy Terror Incarnate, and if he's not playing the Ultimate Nightmare, a card would not come back out in the field. But if he does the traditional route of destroying Spirit of Yubel, he would have a Yubel on field. But also knowing the Sniper Hunters only has 3 cards in hand, and you only have a couple of negates, it may not even matter. A set 1?
Remember that at least one of those cards is likely to be the Psy-Frame Gear Gamma.
So we do know that we're kind of down 1 card in hand. We are starting with the Phantom of Yubel. Obviously a great card to have on the field, but against no other cards. I mean, it might be locking down the last card in hand for Team Snipehunters here, but we will have to see.
I'm trying to gauge the state of the hands
thing?
by the
Yeah, I was about to say, was that
happy
happy or sad? Or
that looks like an oh my god. That looks like I have incredible combos and I can't wait to unleash them. At least that's how I would read it. We're also looking at, in Duel C, is that a Tier Limits match, mirror match?
That is a Tier Limits mirror match, and Quantal was able to topple Jesse Cotton last year, but can he do it again? That will be the case. Actually, we see from Heroes Future, Snake Eye Fire King, Tier Limits, and Yubel, arguably the 3 strongest decks in the current Master Duel format.
Hey, I'm glad we're getting one of each. This is a treat for us here.
Top decking that Nightmare Pain, or potentially open with 2, because like you said, Chilled, you can't activate them both in the same turn. Either way, we have access to it now. That is great. I do see over in Duel A, we have run over an Appaloosa, and we are starting to combo off with the Snake Eyes cards. So that could be in the favor of Snipehunters, but we will have to see. Like we've said so many times, like we've seen so many times, it is not over until it's over, and that is all we see.
Wow, okay.
Both of these teams can lose 1 game, but they need to win the other 2 if they hope to proceed to the finals.
You said that was such I love that. That was with authority because
that was conviction.
It is a fact. It's a fact of life.
I'm invested.
I'm invested too, mainly because I want to see both of these teams advance, but only one can.
And we don't even know what Emery is playing.
At this point, no, we technically do not know.
So it would either be the Flunderies or it would be the Centurion.
Those are his 2 decks, yes. Yeah, I think it's probably the Fluunderies because I believe that one did have a lot of going first and going second cards. We see the Infinite Impermanence come down. Not bad at all. Now, do remember, Phantom of Yubel can still tribute itself to get it off the board to turn the Gamma online.
Bestial Jerusalem, this should be Centurion, actually, because the Bestial's being committed to the strategy.
You're not seeing that in Fluunderies. So must have just not drawn any of their starters, which is pretty rare considering how many they have.
Yeah, the Trudea, the Primera, the Field Spell, all are good for the Centurion, but Emre saying he doesn't need that. He has enough with the Bestial, and he is currently winning against the Yubel deck by the looks of it. Or at least in a pretty good position.
Absolutely, but still having the Nightmare Pain on the board. We don't know the one set card. If you draw any Dark Monster, you could instantly turn that into a full combo.
Both players not really being able to get their engines online here. This is kind of a top-decking war, and we see a set card and a pass.
I like this. This is old school Yu-Gi-Oh!
That is not what you want to be seeing in terms of your draws. Can we actually draw a Centurion card finally?
We go straight to battle.
Straight to battle. I mean, it's going to be whoever draws a starter card first, I feel like.
The old days of set one pass.
I think Goryoku already drew quite a few good ones, but the Samsara D Lotus still available for use. And presumably at the 3 copies in the deck as well. Meanwhile, Emre not having access to the Trudea, to the Primera, to the Field Spell for the Centurion deck. There are so many opportunities depending on what they're able to draw.
And another
pass back. And remember, if we do see a Samsara Lotus here, Samsara D Lotus here, it will be protected from Ash Blossom because of the
Another
Gamma.
battle phase.
25 again. I mean, we are on a clock. Old Caboozle's theory with Dino Rabbit. How many times can you attack with the Sneezing Dinosaur to deal 8,000 damage? We're seeing the same thing. Druid Worm theory.
At 4 cards, we got to have something. Something's got to start.
Could just be Gamma Driver.
You know what? You're not wrong. Or
Ray Dai was just unlucky.
3 Sphere Modes. I know I have the deck list, but still.
We do see
There we go.
Okay.
One card starter with the insurance policy of the Psy-Frame Gear Gamma.
Could there be an Infinite Impermanence face down, possibly? Okay, guess not, because it would have been activated.
And the thing, I mean, when you allow one of these players to draw 3 cards, you're looking like half of them could be interrupts or traps or anything.
I think Quantal just dropped Abyss Dweller in the Telemans Mirror match, by the way.
And I'm also seeing Duel A looks like it's pretty handedly in Josh's favor. He has a board of 5, 6 cards.
Ash Blossom and Joy Spring.
Onto the Maxi. So yeah, they got hand traps galore.
Okay,
I like how the moment we start paying attention to the other 2 duels, this one picks up again. Yeah. After passing back and forth, things are now back online for Emre and Goryoku.
Activating that Nightmare Pain.
Is that our first time seeing Zeus this week?
We haven't seen it too often, have we?
No, we have not. But
Typhon's been a lot more popular. And the Zeus animation, you love seeing that.
Oh my god.
I believe that was from the Animation Chronicles, or at least based on that. Very cool.
Now, we're going to see if there's a reaction to the Nightmare Pain, but if there's not, I mean, that's going to put Heroes Future in quite a good spot, which I think they're going to need considering how some of the games are going in the bottom space.
And again, both of these teams need 2 victories, and with Snipehunters looking to be in the lead in the other 2, it is all resting on this Yubel making a comeback here.
So Nightmare Pain destroys the Spirit of Yubel, allowing a Yubel to come out. You also have Nightmare Throne, which might even give us the Terror Incarnate, and then he adds a Gruesome Grave Screamer to his hand, so assuming full combo might be in our future.
I'd say we are finally making plays here at turn 9.
Terror Incarnate added to hand here. Maybe we see the Ultimate Nightmare, maybe not, but regardless, this looks to be a better position for the Yubel deck.
So right now, we don't know that set down card or the set face down card, but that is 5K on board at the moment. You can also make a Phantom of Yubel, which he is making. That is 7,500 on the board.
If we have no interactions, this is over right here.
Yes, and I mean, you have 1 monster negate as well, which would allow you to then get another Yubel out.
Centurion Phalanx.
Banishing 1.
Okay, so you banish your own card so that the Yubel has to attack you directly, and it's just 0, 0, 0.
What a smart play.
We've seen Phalanx drawn a lot. I feel like we've seen that more than actual Centurion monsters. We do see Duel A down there finishing up with a blue win. Team Snipehunters is at 4 wins. They just need to win 1 more game to have this.
Snipehunters at match point here. If Emre or Quantal can pull it off, we could see them advance. We could see our reigning world champions make a claim for the title again. But Heroes Future, they're not out of it. The Yubel deck is still in it. and we can see how this one plays out.
I will say, though, looking over at Duel C, we're looking at Quantal having 4 cards on the field. He just got a Zeus off. 5 cards in hand, well, just discarded 1, but a ton of cards versus just 2 cards.
And Emery's looking at the same thing. I think Emery has checked out of his own game as he's seeing if his partner could just pull off the win. That would give them 5 points. That's enough. It doesn't really matter what happens in this game too much. Now, obviously, it's not over till it's over, but sometimes when you see a board like that, you're like, all right, buddy, you just get the W and I'll just go out there.
And that's the great part about the 3v3 environment is that if you have a bad hand or you have a, just an unlucky hand. I mean, Emery has not seen a single Centurion card in his Centurion deck. Yeah. Sorry, there was the Phalanx. Even if that happens, you can rely on your teammates a little bit. Now, you never want to just fully rely on them because, they could have also drawn a bad hand or whatever, but I think that is one of the great things about this 3v3 environment, and it's why it's so important to pick teammates that you trust.
I think it's going to be coming down to that Duel C game as we now see a Dugaris also hit the board, because up in our Duel B, our little featured match here, this is going into
full Ubel combo, pretty much.
Combo.
We got the Yama, we got the Shavara, we got the Phantom, and this is everything.
If they're running Iblock or anything, but there's not a lot that they're going to be able to do up in this game. The Ubel is going to be controlling the board completely.
Yeah, it looks to be like Goryoku will be able to tie this one up, and we will be pushed to that deciding game, but let's see, this isn't over yet. Unchained Sword of Rage now coming out to join the Lord of Yama and the Phantom of Ubel. Goryoku with the Ubel. What can he do to close this one out and push it to be contingent on Quantal's game?
I think contingent gets our word of the day so far.
Thank you.
3,800 on the field right now, but don't forget about the Nightmare Pain. It makes it very difficult to play into these boards because you have to attack these U-Bells, and you don't want to because then you'll kind of lose right there.
Yeah, and we're in main phase 2, though, so he's just building that board for protection.
More disruption.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
What are we making here? Gigantic Sprite. Always funny to see Gigantic Sprite summoned with Link monsters only. You don't.
Are we going into the lock? Cards. We are going into the Ibli lock.
You called it. Okay, we are Ibling. I mean, that's going to... What does Centurion do against Ibli?
Nothing.
They cry.
Nothing. So it really is coming down to that final game, and we're starting to see you got some big monsters down there and Duel C happening. So we'll see how that makes the push. They're passing turns.
Sprite Elf getting summoned. The Ibli going to the opponent's side of the field there. Sprite Elf being activated. Sprite Elf being a really big deal. Being able to bring back the Unchained Soul of Rage, and then also being able to prevent the 2 cards that it points to from being targeted, and then also being able to potentially bring back another monster on the opponent's turn 2.
Yeah, this is looking really good for Hero's future in this game here. Ubel definitely in the lead right now with the Ibli being summoned as well. Tell me more about how...
Desires off the top, by the way.
Solid. Tell me more about how this Ibli build is different from the regular Ubel build.
So we're actually locking them out of being able to use their extra deck unless they have a Link monster, which not everyone's going to have. So it plays a bit more control. And let's say they do, if they are able to link it away into something, you have the Unchained Soul of Rage able to link that away and give you an even stronger monster like an SP Little Knight. So essentially 3 or 4 interruptions that they play through.
You see a tribute summon for Baldrake, I believe.
At this point, though, you got to play through 3 interruptions before you can even start engaging the Phantom of Ubels.
You can summon a Typhon here, but that doesn't even really do too much.
Delays by 1 turn, as we've seen so far this one.
Yeah, it keeps you alive. It keeps you alive. But this is a very difficult position to be in against Ubel.
Does it even keep you alive? Can't you use the Unchained Soul of Rage to also just... he's going to bounce it back, but he's going to negate it, and he's going to use the chain.
Super Starslayer Typhon Sky Crisis, effectively negated by the Phantom of Ubel.
This one is going to be pretty decisive in Ubel's favor. So we're going to see, I know down in Duel C, they drew 1 card after it was past the red team. So what they drew, we don't know, 3 unknown, but up against a full board and a full backboard. And
we see the triple tactics talent. Now, do keep in mind when you summon Typhon, obviously a very powerful card, you are done summoning though. So that is one thing to keep in mind when you play against Typhon. If that is what they are doing, you know they have nothing else, but you can still activate spell cards, you can still potentially take monsters. Can we find a way to get to 3,000 though? We are drawing 2 cards here. Let's see what we can get to.
Triple Tactics talent, of course, being that iconic rare shared card for Snipehunters last year. Really funny that it's now being used as potentially a decider for a game that would otherwise keep Snipehunters in the tournament.
And it's interesting that you point that out because I don't think anyone did choose it as their shared card this year, but we have seen it time and time again. And I have to imagine, I think a lot of these decks just have the 1 random copy, but if you're deck thinning so much with your engine, you might see that 1 random copy. You got to draw something, right?
Yep.
Gonna use the Soul of Rage.
Into a SP Little Knight.
Yep, SP Little Knight will get rid of the face down, you have to imagine as well.
But each time it is costing him an additional draw as well, or sorry, giving his opponent an additional draw every time he is summoning these. So he feels confident in the build, but you never want to accidentally give your opponent the game.
Yeah, like what can we possibly set up here with these draws? I mean, maybe you can draw like Bisteel, 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 I guess, but...
In a Centurion build, I don't know. It feels like it needs to kind of be on your turn.
Main 2 end phase, we are passing there with a completely open board, 5,500 life points versus 5,000 on board. I'm sure we can find a way to get 500. Let's see.
I can't tell what just played in Duel C, but it looks like a final move was just, or sorry, a starting move was finally played by Heroes Future.
Let's see the Dark Beckoning Beast. I mean, the opening of Spirit Gates by itself easily can get you to pretty much any number of Link monsters to set up 500 damage.
Oh, and there's the Chaos boost. Oh, okay.
We are switching over, jumping into Quantel's game. We see a change of heart targeting something, and then a Fairy Tale Snow getting changed to presumably banish the card that was targeted.
And it all comes down to this, because if Quantel can take it, then Snipe Hunters will advance over Heroes Future, but Heroes Future, they're still in this.
Especially with tier elements, you never want to count them out. We do see the Medora getting chained from the graveyard. Now, this year we don't have the Mill 5 cards, but we do still have access to the Shufflers, and they are quite powerful.
I realized, by the way, if this is the tier elements mirror, that means that Josh was actually successful in the Fire King Snake Eye mirror against Maguro.
That's, considering how much that he's dominated, that's a pretty tall ask. So
impressive.
Yes.
Shuffling back a Happy, a Destrudo, and this Fairy Tale Snow, or at least targeting those cards. Fairy Tale Snow going to be chained again because it's not a once per turn. Not a once per turn. Banishing another 7 cards to get the special summon. Will we have another Chain Link? No, we will not.
We do see this coming down to this final game here, as we did see Goryoku manage to beat Emre. 4 wins apiece for Snipe Hunters and Heroes Future in this set. The winner of this duel will secure it for their team.
And we see it pass with a set. 8,000 life points still for the Heroes Future in this position. We have the Fairy Tale Snow on the field, which means if you can't get rid of that without putting it to the graveyard, it can always potentially come back.
Dugaris caused the draw phase to be skipped, I think.
All right, so
we did see that, yes.
Well, Quantel has really been using that Dugaris to a lot this weekend. But definitely a favorite card. I don't know if we've really seen a ton of other tournament players actually summon that card. We see a ton
so many rank 4 XCs in this
is
deck.
So interesting, but I think that it goes with, I believe Quantel is the one that is playing Trick Clown, so if you are really focusing on these rank 4s are some of the most powerful Xyz monsters in the game. That's been true for like a decade at this point.
But you're also getting the Shireen effect as well, so I mean, you're going to be popping off on the Fusion, and we can't forget the Horus monsters are still in play.
Yep, and I think those 2 set cards were set a while ago now, so they are able to be activated. We do see the combination of the Fusion Summon into the Tillaments Kaleido Heart. This is a really good position for Quantel to be in.
And I think that Quantel's tier element deck is so interesting because it is 40 cards. We've seen a lot of them go...
The Horus monster coming back out.
Imseti, Glory of Horus. This is a lot of damage on the field right now. What is the face down?
Stormy Mirror Force? If it's not, this is it. I think this might be it.
Quantel has game. Maybe, unless Tusku can bring something out.
We might be going to the finals for Team Snipe Hunters. Is this it?
Does the final attack connect?
Oh, we have something. Something's going to happen. Do we have the fairy? We do have a difference.
Oh!
That's it. That is it. Snipe Hunters is going to the finals for a 2nd year in a row. They have proven themselves twice now that they are some of the best Master Duel players in the entire world. They have one more match to prove themselves.
And we mentioned Quantel was so good last year at Tournament, and he's still good this year at Tournament. He clutches it out for the team. He takes down Tusku. He takes down Heroes Future, and Snipe Hunters are your finalists here in the Master Duel category of the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship 2024.
And let's not forget that they lost every single coin toss in that last set, and they still managed to get it. That is incredibly impressive. You got very unlucky by losing all the coin tosses, but you were able to come back, and I think that really shows just how headstrong these players are.
What we saw from both teams, honestly, was a war of attrition. You're talking pass, set, pass, set, pass, set. Everyone gave it their all. They flew from across the country, and nobody should be upset at how they played. Everyone played fantastic. Taking it to Game 9?
Really well played by Heroes Future regardless, though. They looked like the best team in the world coming out of that day one, but ultimately it is snipehunters that managed to make it through. Emre looked so good in that round robin stage on day one, but here it is Quantal and Josh that managed to win out over their opponents and take snipehunters all the way to the finals.
And I think like what we were talking about earlier, someone has to win the round, especially in a single elimination like day two is, someone has to win. So no matter how good each teams are, no matter how much time they put into deck building, no matter how much prep they've done, someone has to come away the winner and someone has to come away the loser. So we don't want to say that either team did worse necessarily this round. I think we saw a lot of back and forth Yu-Gi-Oh! It obviously came down to that final game. We did not see a full sweep, and I think that just goes to show how strong these two competitors were.
And checking on the standings here, we did see actually Team 7 managing to edge out 5-4 versus CER. And we have a rematch of last year's finals.
Unreal. I think that those 6 competitors have now proven themselves as the Mr. Master Duels, if I can say. That is insane.
And I told you, man, a rematch of last year, and you're telling me
Master Duel Worlds 2.
We can't get this licensed for something? Come on, that's incredible.
This is incredible, and not only is it funny to see these two players, not funny, but it's going to be interesting to see, you know, some of the same decks, some of the same cards popping up. Another tier limit mirror match could decide this tournament, which would be very funny.
And Jesse Cotton was undisputed king of the tier limits mirror match until he ran into Quantal at Worlds last year.
Mr. Ebreeze, are you able to tell us what the final breakdown for that for the other competitors, what their score went to?
I believe it did go to 4 and 5 as well, with Jesse managing to secure the victory. Tierlement again dictating who proceeds into the grand finals.
I think we are about to go over to the winning interview here to kind of hear from some of our players and how they're feeling.
Thank you very much, casters. I am live with your semifinals feature match. Victors here, Team Snipehunters. First up, we have Jack Rory, aka Quantal. Congratulations on another finals appearance, and you defeated Tasuku again on the way there. But it was hard. It was hard fought. I want to hear first your thoughts on Heroes Future and how that match went.
The match against Tasuku was a long one, back and forth. I think him having not having Dweller was a great addition. Being able to go break his board, make Dweller, make Zeus, break his board, then set up double trap, scream, set up, full board, SP, down to no cards. And at that point, I think I just had full control, which was just stressful, low on time, and that's it.
But you got it.
そうですね、今回の試合に関してタスク選手のチームと何度も対戦することタスク選手のチームともう一度対戦することとなり、それに関してどういう感じでしたかというところと、その試合についてどう思ったかというところと、という質問となりました。それに関しての答えとしてはやはり彼とのタスク選手たちとのチームとの試合は非常に難しいものでもあり、試合展開の最中でも何度も相手の方が布陣を新しいのを出し、それを何度もそれを壊してそしてまた作られ壊して作られという形で、自分の方も何度も繰り返しいろいろ考えることもあり、正しい選択ができたと思っております。
And now we'll actually invite Emre up next. Congratulations, Emre, defending champions. How much pressure are you feeling now going into another finals? And how does it compare to last year, where it was the first ever World Finals?
I mean, there's always pressure when you play a final or just like any game at Worlds. I feel like compared to last year, there's less pressure because we know what to expect. We know like what will come. So I think it's just we play our best Yu-Gi-Oh! And just hope.
今回、前回の優勝者で今回、王座防衛戦となると思いましたが、それについての気持ちと、それと去年と今年と比べるとどのような緊張がありましたかという質問に関してですが、どの試合に関しても、ファイナルのように非常に集中してプレーしているというところと、今年に関してはある種去年より何が待っているかということが分かっているため、そこまで緊張せずにプレーできたと申しております。
Thank you very much. And now finally, we'll invite up the team captain, Joshua Schmidt. Now, again, going into your second World Finals here for Master Duel, and I have a bit of an update for you because the off-stream semifinals match has concluded, and it is Team 7 that you will be rematching in the finals. So what message do you have for everybody back home giving you their support as you get the rematch?
That's hard to put into words because I also just learned that. I didn't know that. That is, that's crazy. That's a very unlikely thing to happen, I feel like. But I'm super happy to be back, and I feel like from this point on, we have nothing to lose. We're going to try our very best. If they win, they also very much deserve it, as much as they deserved it last year. And yeah, we'll try our best to prevent it, but we'll see how it goes.
今回の試合に関して新しく組み合わせが決まり去年と同じ組み合わせが決勝でなるということが今分かったというところで、それに関してどのような気持ちですかという質問がございました。それに関して去年と同じ組み合わせになると思ってなくて、それがすごいことだとは思っております。今回に関して、もう失うものはないとのことで、もう決勝に臨むと、彼らが勝つ可能性もありますが、それを頑張って食い止めてみたいと思っております。
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, everybody. Our semifinalists, now finalists. I'll let you get going so you can prepare for your finals match. And we're going to send it back over to